Welcome to a little something, something in the spirit over time, the relationship tune-up moment. I'm having to calm down because I just had to make a whole bunch of last-minute switches because I thought we were going on our own. Now I'll work it into what we're talking.
We didn't know we were doing Zoom.
We didn't know we were doing Zoom this evening, and so I was prepared to go the way I thought we were going, and I'm not blaming anybody. But I had to do a lot of retooling and thinking. And so it works because what we're going to talk about is the chemistry of love and how we are able to be with one another in our space, in our family space, and that kind of stuff. So, Jill, because we haven't discussed this at all, I'm going to have to just take point. But I want to tell you the why. Mm-hmm. I called it the chemistry of love is because many of us don't know what love is. Mm-hmm. We think we know, and we have a version of love. Mm-hmm. But today I want to be able to demonstrate the first few steps and not be sequential order, but what your mindset has to be. Because I'm still coming out of as he thinks in his heart, so he is. Mm-hmm. As she thinks in her heart, so she is. Mm-hmm. As the family thinks in its heart, so it is. Mm-hmm. As the relationship breathes in its heart, so it is. Mm-hmm. And so once again, we're on Proverbs 23:7. And we've done this a few times, so I'm sure you're going to connect with it. But what I want to be able to do is talk about what happens to our brains, our minds, our bodies. We are wonderfully made. And what happens when we don't understand the environment or whatever we grew up in and how it affects our love. And so we're just getting ready to give you a little something in the spirit. And it's really going to be in the spirit because we're flowing. To help you understand love and the chemistry of love, because it has to have a certain makeup.
Yeah, and when you hear the word chemistry, think about triggers, right? Mm-hmm. Think about all the things that love, what it requires to love, to have lasting love, to grow in each other's space. When that is happening, there are triggers. There are chemical reactions.
Right.
To what we might call energy, right? It's chemical reactions to being in a relationship.
That's it. I mean, you pretty much put it in a nutshell in terms of how to describe that. Mm-hmm. And it's all in your head. Avery Sunshine had the song, It Was All in My Head. Mm-hmm. And it helped me when she first came out with that song, because she was saying, I made a mountain out of a molehill. I got things going and it was nothing really there. It was all in my head. Mm-hmm. And I want to submit that you have love, but a lot of times the blockage is in your love. It's in your head and it's a part of your brain. And so for years, I've been talking about my brain is hardwired by chaos. Our brains have been hardwired by a chaotic environment, a chaotic space. And we learn to maintain this environment, and we call this environment normal. And when you call something normal or chaos normal, strongholds equal chaos. And many of us have a stronghold on our behavior, a stronghold on our thought process, and we don't understand that we are products of our love environment. Mm-hmm. And if we are not aware of that, we miss out. And so that's what I think that we're going to discover. Mm-hmm. And I had to choose, and I think I still have it on. Yeah, I had to choose this bracelet, and I bought, because I am a visual learner, and I'm an artist. We're all artists at heart, but I'm an artist. I had to buy these different trinkets on this bracelet to remind me of love, to remind me of medical school, to remind me of my commitment to drama. I have drama mask. I had to have a Bible of you, because when I knew you, this thing said to me wisdom. And so I would look at this and say wisdom, and I put letters B-E on this, which means to be. But the B is after, what comes right after the B is a heart, be love. And so I had to start off with love. This necklace starts with love. This bracelet starts with love, a heart, and it ends with a gold heart. Because I understood that if I was going to be the husband that I thought I could be able to be the father, the dad, the friend, the pastor, the lover, the teacher, then I was going to have to surrender and allow my mind, my brain to be rewired, because I had learned that the brain was malleable and your brain knows what's important. Tell me if you understand what I'm saying.
Well, definitely your brain knows what's important based on what you pay attention to.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you pay attention to, you send a signal to your brain that this is important. Mm-hmm. By your own, your reactions, your responses. You tell your brain that this is what I care about. This is what I don't care about. Mm-hmm. In the area of memory, the way that we get to short-term memory and long-term memory is because you send your brain the signal that whatever in short-term memory, we don't need to hold on to this.
Mm-hmm.
But long-term memory happens because something that happens, some chemical, it could be chemical.
Right.
It could be your own repetition of something. Like, for instance, we know that an addiction has now sent a sign to the brain that whatever this substance is, I need this. Mm-hmm. And so you go through, so your body begins to react. You have a chemical reaction now to a substance that used to be something that you did for pleasure. Mm-hmm. That's now an addiction because now you have sent the message to your brain, and your brain is now being hardwired to need that substance in order to function versus something happening naturally. So one of the things I would like to say is that what it means to be hardwired. And that is that it's a permanent feature if it's a computer. When a hardwired computer, it's a permanent feature. And no matter how much software you put in that computer, right? Mm-hmm. Software used to be disk or whatever we do. Whatever software we put in that computer, it doesn't change the hardware.
Right.
Okay. So now think of yourself that way and think of some standard. So when Deron says we're hardwired to do certain things, this is now instinctive. Now here's the blessing on the front end, and then he'll take you to something else going towards. Here's the blessing on the front end, that if you learned it, you can unlearn it.
Yeah.
Because it is not the feature that was sent to you from God, meaning there are some people who have a level of brain damage that is biological. That's hardwired. It's biological.
Right.
And you can't just fix that a certain way. But then there's someone else who may have depression, may have something that is not part of the biology, but is thought, psychological. Well, guess what? Somebody can reverse that. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, we can already get to it.
Okay. So the point here with hardwiring is this, that right now what we're saying is it's possibly that you're living by a standard or you're doing something instinctively, and you can undo that and you can learn new ways.
Right. And so what you're saying, we talked about it earlier, you got to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And to be transformed, because sometimes this world seems like it's against us. Sometimes when we're in this world, we don't understand that the world has caused our hearts to become cold and the response to the environments that we're in. And so I was listening. So in order to be transformed, you've got to rekindle your fire within your heart. Okay. You've got to be able to access the fire in your heart. Earth, Wind, and Fire did a song called Hearts of Fire, Create Love, Desire, takes you higher and higher to the world you belong.
Mm-hmm.
Many of us, we didn't understand that we became prisoners of this current world,
Mm-hmm.
prisoners of these thoughts, prisoners of these things that happen
Mm-hmm.
when we were not aware of it
Mm-hmm.
often. And therefore, we don't understand how to transcend. And it's not just something, he says, more than an overcomer. And so higher and higher to the world you belong, which means a higher consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And Earth, Wind, and Fire understood the same as you do not. Romans 12:2 says, do not be conformed to this world any longer. Its superficial values and customs. Be transformed, progressively changed as you mature spiritually by renewing your mind and focusing on godly values and ethical attitudes. You're transformed when you realize that you have the power of choice and you can rewire your brain by telling your brain, this new mindset is what's important to me right now. I have not had this mindset. I thought that I was flowing in the spirit, flowing in love, but now I've been given a higher truth. And so now I tell myself, remember this moment, remember this feeling, remember this conversation. And I'm doing this on a regular basis and making a memorial within myself to be able to remind myself God has a way and an acceptable and perfect will. And the only way you're going to be able to see the perfect will for your life is to have peace of mind. Mm-hmm. And peace of mind has to be what you desire.
Mm-hmm. And so one of the things we talked about earlier is that it's what you believe. And so you start off with a thought,
mm-hmm.
then you take that thought captive, but then you make that same thought obedient to the goodness in your heart. In the Bible, it says obedient to Christ. So when you're in this space, what has to be challenged is what you believe. I said this earlier. I don't believe that anybody can disqualify me because I don't believe they qualify me.
Right. Mm-hmm.
If I believe that you qualify me, this is why people pleasing is such a shame. It's a sham. Because every time you go and you allow someone to qualify you, you give them the power to disqualify you.
Mm-hmm. Why do you call it a sham?
People pleasing?
Yeah.
Because listen, the fear of man is a snare. Okay, can I call it a snare?
Okay.
The fear of man is a snare.
Okay, that's what we're going to. You're right.
So one of the things about when it talks about you rekindling, and I just hear it from the meaning of to rekindle, it means to revive something that has been lost.
Mm-hmm.
So, Deron, it's hard for someone to revive something that has been lost if you don't believe that something's lost. This is why all this wake up has to happen, so that you can wake up, come out of some standard of the world, and see for yourself that you're not living up to your highest potential. Right
now, we're all having, or we should be experiencing, no, we are, as a community, as a society, we're experiencing an awakening where our minds are being awakened, our spirits, our bodies, everything, our senses is being awakened. And wait a minute, I thought all of this is what life is. But now my entire life has been put on hold, or my being, my purpose, what I thought I was going to do. And so in this season, when you decide I'm going to have the chemistry of love, you are also understanding that you can say to yourself, because many of us, we got caught up in managing these chaotic environments as opposed to growing in these chaotic environments and making the changes. And so right here, once we were disturbed by these environments, we lost our aliveness. We lost our vitality. And many of us, then we begin to follow, like people pleasing becomes your vitality. Making sure, and a people pleaser is nothing but a nice person. And you learn how to be nice to adverse situations as well. And our brains at some point became aware of, and this is why I want to, you said fear. At some point when we were growing or when we were being domesticated or raised or whatever, we became aware of the possible destruction. Our brains became aware of the possible destruction of what we were seeing, perceiving, and experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
And so children are human. And so what I'm saying is that, Jill, so that you understand, we see fear and perceive death.
Mm-hmm.
And so many children as children, if it happened when you were young or when you did not have the capacity or the skills to be able to navigate your way through this world that will cause your heart to grow cold, you began to see energy as a danger. And when you saw fear and you perceived it as death, you developed a response to that fear. It's all in our heads, and it's really in the amygdala, the fear center of the brain, where we realize that we so responded so many times. We were, there are some children that they couldn't walk past, they get popped in the head, bopped in the mouth, yelled at, all these different things over something.
Spilled milk.
Thank you.
Somebody spilled some milk. A parent goes off. When you understand the purpose of something, it gives you power. It gives you more strength and courage to deal with it. So I want you to understand that all of what we're talking about and the purpose of all of these things, this rewiring, this hardwiring, this chaotic environment, let me give you a main understanding of what this purpose is. It is to put your fire out.
Mm-hmm.
It is to it is so that your light will go out. So even, Deron, when we read about
Go ahead.
the scripturally what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman, and we know that in there that it is basically saying we're God's fire. Right? Well, but remember what fire is. Fire isn't just to burn. Fire also purifies. It doesn't just destroy, it purifies, but it's also a light.
Right.
So the goal is that you become so rewired and made over by all of these hits in life that you never get to be the light that you were sent here to be. There's a scripture, Leviticus 6, that I keep dear to my heart, and it's
I'm not in a hurry. Okay.
No problem.
Go ahead.
So I'm going to read verse 12, 6:12. And I'm reading out the NIV. It says, the fire on the altar must be kept burning.
Right.
This is talking about the burnt offering, but the fire on the altar, it must be kept burning.
Mm-hmm.
It must not go out.
Okay.
Every morning, the priest is to add firewood, kindle, right?
Okay.
Firewood, and arrange the burnt offering on the fire and burn the fat of the fellowship offerings on it. Verse 13. The fire must be kept burning on the altar continuously. It must not go out.
That's it. That's not what scripture is that? Yeah.
Leviticus 6.
Okay.
I just read 12 and 13. And this is a story about the burnt offering, but I started at 12. It must not go out. Hear me, people.
Mm-hmm.
Hear me. Don't let a husband put your fire out. Make you put your lamp under the table. What does the wisdom tell us? That a lamp, when it comes to where the spirit is concerned,
mm-hmm.
that lamp is not hidden. It's not put on the table. It is meant to be on the table to give light to the world.
Right.
And so when you don't value yourself as a necessary component
mm-hmm.
to make this world a better place, then you may not care enough to keep your light from going out, and you may not care enough to keep your lamp burning. Remember the 5 wise and foolish virgins. What was the deal? Somebody ran out of oil. They couldn't keep their lamp burning.
Mm-hmm.
Their fire went out. And they missed a major moment in their life. Why? Because their fire went out. Then they went to people with oil, but let's say with people with still had the particular thing to keep their lamps burning, saying, can you give me some of that? There's some things I can't give you because you must be, what you say, keep it 100 the first time we did this. You need a 100% responsibility. Don't let your fire go out. And here's the blessing in life. Even when people, I know what my childhood was like, and they did not know to help you to keep your fire burning. But if you look to God and you look to the spirit of truth, because it was always there in you, and you look for the spirit of truth to lead you back to your organic self, it is there. But if you keep looking at the people who did not know in the world they were doing when they were raising you, you are never going to look for you because you're still waiting to blame on somebody else to take responsibility for your whole entire life.
So when it says we're wonderfully made, I wrote down while you're talking, we misuse our fires.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll make the point as I read this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
my notes. We misuse our fires because we were never taught how to manage our heat,
Right.
how to deal with the spilt milk, how to deal with major events. And so when we have not been taught that, you sent a text to say, our granddaughter is in warrior training right now,
Mm-hmm.
not little princess training,
Right.
but warrior training right now. And at 5, 6 years old, this is when you must instill in them the can do and how to manage their heat.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we misuse our fires, I want us to understand, Jill, that our responses to danger or distress, when we respond to those things that happen unconsciously, what begins to happen, we see danger as death.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of danger as something to be overcome,
Mm-hmm.
danger is something to triumph over. We learn to shrink back. We learn to hide our light, as you said, under the table. We learn to tamp ourselves down as opposed to allowing ourselves to rise to the occasion.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens and you see danger as death, therefore voices, tones begin to be equated with death. And so now all of a sudden, if you hear somebody speak in a certain tone, if you hear this tone, if you hear this coming out of a person, you begin to associate what they're saying with death or equaling death. And over time, your brains learn to respond to danger through immediate exaggeration. Now, let me finish.
Mm-hmm.
Immediate exaggeration, meaning you learn to increase your fire. Immediate exaggeration of your energy. Why? Because you learn explosions. And this is the reaction in our unconscious mind, and I maximize our energy. That's why we got clapped back to back you down.
Right. And when you think about it, Deron, what happens is people do that in your space. Parents take small situations,
Mm-hmm.
and I think Judge Toller said this in her book, a statement Judge Toller made in her book about mastering your emotions or becoming an emotional genius. Mm-hmm. And she said, you have to be able to show proper passion for things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of your passion is misplaced. So if I looked up the text that I sent, right, on
Mm-hmm.
behalf of my granddaughter. And I'll give you the context of it because it fits into this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the conversation, get the picture. Everybody got this picture. We're in a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now my granddaughter's birthday is coming up in a month or two. And the conversation starts because prior to the pandemic, my granddaughter had already talked about where she wanted her birthday party.
Hmm.
So we know you're not gonna be able to go to places, and she can't have that.
Right.
Because Sky Zones or
right.
these bouncy places that you go to where her mother can afford to take her, listen, the travel and all of that is out. So now there's a conversation and everybody trying to figure out what we're gonna do, right? So one statement is everybody's gonna drive by my daughter's house with gifts and drop them off. My granddaughter don't need a venue. She got 3 of everything, maybe 4. Because every grandparent, and she got 2 sets of grandparents on Talia's side.
Mm-hmm.
On my daughter's side, I got bicycles. We all had bicycles. I just gave one to Joe started with his grandbaby that my granddaughter only used 3 times.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because life happened and she couldn't come over here as much as we wanted her to. So this is what I wrote back to them when they wanted to kind of have some
pity party,
sad faces,
mm-hmm.
or some, oh man, she's not gonna get what she want.
Mm-hmm.
This was Jill wrote, please. P-U-H-L-E-E-Z-E. Please. Lita, which is my daughter, short for Talita. Lita, you didn't get a birthday every year, and look how you turned out. Everybody knows she's a Harvard graduate and a physician. No tears from me. A dose of real life goes a long way. Otherwise, my granddaughter, otherwise she might turn out like one of those people who love parties, but their future is bankrupt from irresponsible living and choices. Zuri is in warrior training, not princess.
Mm.
And then I said, the pound, hit set. See, why am I saying this to you? Because if someone gives her an impression that she ought to be safe, that she can't have a birthday party during a pandemic,
Right.
then when real trouble comes, she won't know the difference between what to put that emphasis on that you were talking about and what not to put emphasis on. And so what we do, we create so many so-called emergencies.
Right.
That after a while, people don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're constantly living in that level of anxiety. Oh, my child's not going to be able to graduate. They really wanted to graduate. Well, guess what reality said? Your life is not going to be exactly the way that you wanted to be prior to this pandemic. And I'm going to teach you how to deal with that and how not to be terribly disappointed when you got refrigerators full of food, closets full of clothes, shoes, everybody's vehicle is working. And where my granddaughter's concerned, she's still getting gifts sent by other grandparents to her house during the pandemic. You are not going to make me believe that little girl is suffering anything. Mm-hmm. And she took a COVID test because she got sick and it's negative. So I'm telling you, no, please.
Right. And hit close to home. And literally, Jill, I wrote down here, this is the season where you must become your own best friend. And becoming your own best friend, you have to learn how to control your energy or make the right decisions. And so we increase our energy so we can stop the disturbance. Mm-hmm. And so I want you, those who are listening, to say and think and say this to yourself. And that is, I back people down with my energy to stop the disturbance. I cut people off. I shut people out. I ignore people. I give certain tones. I speak sarcastically. I speak aggressively. I speak judgmentally. I talk about certain people to other people so that I can back that energy down. The day you admit and acknowledge your contribution to a negative, unnurturing environment. And that it's what Felicia said today at one of the times we talked, and she said something happened with her husband, and she said, I want to reset.
That's right. She said what happened was the day before, say that was Friday. Mm-hmm. Well, she responded to him a certain way with a certain type of energy. Mm-hmm. They went to bed, however they did it. Then the next day, he came, he had some kind of energy, and she's looking at him with what's going on with you. And then what the spirit of truth said to her is, you set that in motion. Mm-hmm. You set energy in motion, energy in motion. You set that energy in motion. So when you see that emotion, that's the energy, the seed that she said she planted. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. And that's what you was talking about.
And I said to you after that broadcast, I said to you, humility has a cadence. Mm-hmm. And you have to, she was acknowledging, I contributed to this environment. You're in this space because the space I was in yesterday.
And I transferred that energy.
And so once you acknowledge this truth, and I said I was very blessed by that, because I said, Jill, you don't get people to do that often. Mm-hmm. You don't get people to humble themselves to their lover and to their loved ones to say, you know what, you have every right to think or feel the way you feel based upon the actions that I sowed or the behaviors that I sowed. And so literally, if your partner is an object of danger, the cause of pain in a relationship, your brain is automatically going to do what it's been taught to do when it deals with danger: constrict, freeze, submit. And so I'll say it again. When your loved one or when your partner is an object of danger and the cause of pain in the relationship, your brain is going to constrict, it's going to freeze, it's going to submit, or it will say, I will explode, I will flee, I will fight. And so all 6 of these choices are all an unconscious direct reaction to not understanding the chemistry of love and understanding that I can rewire myself, but I also have to know I have habitual ways I constrict, I freeze, I submit unwillingly, or I have ways that I flee, that I fight.
Right. And why should you care about that, right?
Yeah.
You should care about that because constricting isn't bad, but it's a problem when that's what you shouldn't be doing.
Okay.
Submitting is a good thing when it's done at the right time and for the right reason. But if you're submitting because you are now dismissing yourself,
okay,
then that's a problem. If you should be confronting, but you are now submitting, but you should be confronting whatever that thing that somebody's bringing in love, of course, but you should be confronting it because why is that? Because you should be turning your light on so that this person, even if they are trapped by, have a blind side or blind spot, that you can be the light so that they can see their blind spot. That means that you keep your light on. So if you are exploding, I'll use Ecclesiastes that said there's a time for everything. There's a time to love, there's a time to hate. You know what I mean? There's a time, there's an opposite time for everything. And our goal is that we are in our appointed time and we are on God's calendar and not on ours because we are constricted and freezing and submitting and exploding and fleeing and fighting when we should be showing courage.
And what I'm hearing is a funk prophet. This is your chance. This is your chance to dance your way out of your constriction. Listen, many of us don't even understand that we have a choice, that I can make a decision. I've been talking to myself for 2 days now, saying, Deron, you're doing good. Deron, you are in the game. Deron, you did an all right job. Deron, like if you know, it's 2 weekends in a row, I was falling asleep when we did the broadcast or drowsy because I was trying to take one of my ashwagandha herbs to help me with stress because of everything I had to do. And then God said, you're going to have to take control of that because you sitting here falling asleep or nodding out, and that's not what you do.
And so let me give this disclaimer for anybody who may be stressed regularly and say, well, you know, you can pray it down, you can do this. No, his stress, the word is anxiety, and it's a side effect of the medication. Okay, so it's heightened. It's not normal human stress.
Right.
It is stress that's added or anxiety that's added because of the medication he takes for his brain.
Right. And so because of that, I've had to say, Jill, you don't have an excuse, Deron. Rewire your brain. Tell yourself what's important. That's why I started this off with saying, this is the why to you, because I understand it's important that you understand where we're going, what's happening, so that you can connect in turn, and our chemistry, we can really be in tune with one another. And so I thank you for explaining that or giving that understanding. On the other hand, if your partner is a source of safety, pleasure, a source of safety, because he or she has been repetitive, a repetitive source of pleasure, not 2-week turnarounds. You could not see me as a source of safety or pleasure if I would have 2-week turnarounds and then I would do my thing and then come back again, and then you would drop your guards again.
Okay, 2 weeks turnaround means that you changed for 2 weeks and then you went back to your. Okay.
And so if you are going to understand the chemistry of love, I had to decide I must be a source of pleasure. And I'm not talking about just sexual pleasure. I'm talking about a source of pleasure, which is safety. You had to see that you could have a conversation with me, that you could share your truth with me. You could share something that you felt was going to upset me, but it upset you, but you chose not to lose yourself. And I had to give you the freedom to be able to do that. And then once I became a source of safety, your brain relaxed its defenses. When you became a source of safety, when I understood that you were going to understand what was being said, you were going to hear, and we were going to have a conversation, not a labeling battle, I relaxed my defenses because I felt safer in your space.
And I'll tell you, Deron, you were singing a song around here the other day. It was Slide and the family song. Slide says, thank you for letting me be
myself again.
Right. And one of the things that, especially with my temperament, because I like things to be concise and in a certain kind of order, or I'll just say concise. Well, in order for me to let you be yourself, I had to see the creator's artistry. I couldn't say, Deron, I'm just going to let you be yourself. I had to see, which I'm thankful that I got to see, but I had to see and read and understand that God has this tapestry, and it's not made just only like me. And I have to see the beauty of what the Father's doing. But why? How is it that I could see that? Because of vision and mission. You know what I mean? I get to see that God's desire is to restore us back to who we are supposed to be in Him, to get us back to that place where our light is our light and our light is snuffed out by our past. And so I had to do a lot of dying, growing up, because I wasn't used to be with people, being around artists. You know, I wasn't used to that. And I shared this with some of you all a couple of weeks ago. And I thank God for certain trips to New York so that I could see the most fabulous people. Using fabulous in this sense, I'm talking about the way they put themselves together. They wasn't doing it. It's just the place where folks.
It's a vibe.
It really is. And then I got to see that when I went to Key West. And that some people, when you go to New Orleans, you see things that just doesn't happen in the metropolitan area. And I get to see that these people give, that's their light. That's their light. And how do I know that's their light? Because when I saw their light, I smiled in my heart. But when I try to understand your light cognitively, I became more, I was critical.
Right.
Because I didn't understand that because this wasn't for me to understand in my mind. It was for me to see in my heart and see what God can do with someone, the different ways that God has.
Here's how you made my environment a place of pleasure. Is that after a while, you stopped talking judgmental about my freedom. And you didn't talk critical anymore, and you chose to understand and surrender your understanding to this is an artist. And then it became more of just a discussion. Now, you still challenge me in certain areas, which you had every right to do, but you made the space safe so that I could have, because in my temperament, I see in images, I see in music. Everything I do, this nobody knows. I'm wearing this thing right here because it has all these different figures on it, and it reminds me of all the voices that try to speak to me, to let me know certain things, and how I have to, with this red soldier, sold out, living, delivered, and everlasting ranks of service, overcome those voices that are in my head. Now, I'm wearing this. I had my other pants on. I said, well, Jen, I don't want to put on my regular jeans. And I kept seeing it, my overalls. And I finally said, put those on, Deron. Why? He says, because you're going to talk about, you got to put the work in. If you're going to hardwire your brain, rewire your brain, you've got to put the compassion work in. And you got to put in love work and not have fear. And you got to roll up your sleeves, and you got to be willing to get dirty. You got to be willing to let your feelings get hurt and not respond out of the hurt, not constrict, not explode. You got to be willing to say, it doesn't matter. I understand. And then let me hear what you're saying. We had to be able to learn how to agree to disagree, but still not be in a space of frequency of disagreement. where we could have a conversation, and if we didn't see eye to eye, that did not mean that we were now not going to be able to talk for 2 days or be able to talk for the next 10 hours.
Right. And until I saw this person adding to me,
okay,
until I saw that you added something in my space. This is something I didn't have in my space.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have a man who wore colors in my space.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with cool and slick, right? And so my standard hardwiring was cool and slick. And so the way that the Father graciously freed me was when I went to different places, and then I saw people who were so different from me. Mm-hmm. Now that didn't turn out to be number one, but all of those things matter. And then one day, Deron, I decided, you put it above. Then one day I decided, you know what? I wasn't going to let the world tell me who to love. I wasn't going to let my small world tell me who to love. I wasn't going to judge. I wasn't going to see from the outside. Right. Help me to see from the inside and help me live up to that. Because I wasn't. Why is that? Because my belief, Ron, I had my belief was connected to what people thought. What are people going to say? How does that make me look? How ridiculous is that? How does that make me look? I don't know. Why does that make me look like something? Right. But I had to challenge myself with those kind of thoughts, because underneath all of what I was doing was those secret thoughts. Yeah. And then how does it make me look? And harmony had to become important. Peace of mind had to become important. And once that became important, then and only then were we able to transcend this world. I want to go here. Oh, and that may be it. And I want to just do this real quick. Oh, it's not there. All right, I'm going to go back to my lesson. It says, hearts of fire create love's desire, take you higher and higher to the place, to the world you belong. You belong in the world where you can find joy even in the midst of your suffering. You deserve to be able to be happy. You owe it to yourself to be able to say, okay, I've been going through life haphazardly, or I have not made my thought life excellent. I have not done that. And because I have not pursued excellence, I have messed around and misunderstood what it was that God was attempting to do for me. Right. You know, there's the scripture that says God works everything out to his ends. At the end of the day, I always think about the Samson story. Samson was off chain, but guess what? God still worked out to his end. So when you said, Deron, hearts of fire, this is how I hear this person. Hearts of fire, right? Creates love desires. So what God does is when you keep your fire on and my fire is on, when you stay lit and I stay lit, then God uses what I wrote, every relationship to reach his own desires. So hearts of fire create love desires. Then we go higher and higher to the place that we belong. Right. So God uses you to get me back to the place I belong in him. He uses me in every relationship we have. Every person in our lives can be used to get us to the place we belong. Because what happened? Because of whatever hard wiring we had that was not the hard wiring from authenticity and purity. What was it? It was lost. What was that word? What was that thing you said? Let me go back. Rekindle. What does the rekindle mean? It means to revive. What are we going to revive? Something that has been lost. This is all about revival. Right. You're reviving me. I'm reviving you, because we're reviving and rekindling something that was lost when we were placed in the hands of people who knew in part, prophesied in part, spoke in part, but they did not know our whole story, and they did their best. But the Father, Creator, knows our whole story. And then in each of these relationships, the Father uses each of these relationships to help you get back to the place that you belong.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think this is what you said. Let me get my notes again. So when it comes to chemistry, that's why chemistry is important, because chemistry is about triggers.
Mm-hmm.
And you are used, and you have been used to trigger me. What does that mean? To make me alive and feel in some area, to awaken me.
Right.
Sometimes you're being awakened to what you need to change.
Right.
Sometimes you're being awakened to something that's honorable. Sometimes you're being awakened to something that's dishonorable. Mm-hmm. But you need to be awakened, and the goal is that once you're awakened, that you stay woke.
Mm-hmm. I began to study, is it Maurice White from Earth, Wind, and Fire. It was his brainchild along with his brother Vernon and his other cousin,
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Earth, Wind, and Fire. And Maurice White, and I'm so glad I got to see him on Broadway and mm-hmm. see him in DC at the National Theater on Hot Feet, because even the musical Hot Feet had the Earth, Wind, and Fire music. Mm-hmm. And when I saw the genius, but you listened to Earth, Wind, and Fire, I did, mm-hmm. but then I began to understand the genius behind mm-hmm. Maurice White. Mm-hmm. Well, they call him Reese. Mm-hmm. But I began to understand. I said, God, I want to understand what and his creative process. Mm-hmm. I want to understand. And I just want to make this one note that I learned is that he made a decision that's the way of the world. Mm-hmm. He said, that's our national anthem. Mm-hmm. He said, that is the anthem of the person, the underdog, that it says the world, the heart is born with a child is born with a heart of gold. Mm-hmm. And the world,
the weight of the world makes their heart turn cold.
The weight of the world makes their heart turn mm-hmm. cold. And he was understanding that many times we as men, humans, this world causes our hearts to go cold. Mm-hmm. But he had to decide that he was going to rekindle his fire mm-hmm. and decide that he was going to believe in the vision. Mm-hmm. And he would sing a song and that he would do the things that he did and shining star for you to see what your life can truly be. Mm-hmm. He began to understand you are a shining star. Mm-hmm. Let your light shine. Mm-hmm. And he decided that we as a group, we were going to remain in our own space mm-hmm. of creativity. Mm-hmm. And with excellence, mm-hmm. we would become better people, better musicians. Mm-hmm. And you keep using the word excellence because Martin Luther King in The Strength of Love said, all labor that uplifts humanity has dignity and importance and should be undertaken with painstaking excellence. You must understand you owe it to yourself, your community, your family, mm-hmm. your family, your loved ones. You own it to become excellent in your pursuit of having clear, fluid, clean thoughts, unencumbered by petty distractions. Mm-hmm. You choose to keep your space pure. Mm-hmm. And even if people around are not walking in the complete purity or they're walking in fear, semi-fear, whatever it is, it does not have to jump on your soul. Mm-hmm. That's what I say a little something, something in the spirit is about. Talk to us.
Right. I'm in total agreement. And this is about how do you, again, another song lyric, set of song lyrics, is how do I lose myself to someone? How do I surrender and submit and not lose my way?
Right.
How do I not lose my way? Well, I have to know, you have to know that you're a light and you have to know that you matter. Mm-hmm. And you have to know that no one gets to live two lives. Everybody mm-hmm. has to live their own life. And if you're married to somebody, they don't get to live out their entire life and your entire life too. You have to stay in your own lane in the sense of keep your light on. Mm-hmm. Keep your light on. And there's so many reasons to turn our lights off. And sometimes frustration absolutely causes us to turn our lights off.
That's it.
Because we give up and we quit. And I just hope that you know that you're important enough to fight for your existence, to keep your fire on, to rekindle your fire, and that you believe that what the Creator is saying about who you are when your fire is lit, and that is hearts of fire. It will create love desires, and when your fire is on, you will create a desire that is according to God's will versus according to the will of this world.
Go back if you have the opportunity. Listen to the song, but this time listen to it with new ears. We are in a season where we are going through some serious times. And so I'm going to read this to you. I'm not going to attempt to sing it, but I'm just going to read the lyrics. And this how we'll work. And we close out, Jill, after I do this, or if you have something to share. Hearts of fire creates love desire. Take you higher and higher to the world you belong. Hearts of fire creates love's desire. Higher and higher to your place on the throne. Mm-hmm. And so you deserve to be in the heavenly realm. You deserve to be in the space to be able to make your choice. And it says, to your way, to your place on the throne. We come together on this special day, sing our message loud and clear. Looking back, we've touched on sorrowful days. Future past, they disappear. And so he's saying that sometimes you go through sorrowful days, the future past, and it disappears while you're going through. But it says you will find peace of mind if you look way down in your heart and soul. You got to make a conscious effort to look way down in your heart and soul. It says if you look way down in your heart and soul, don't hesitate because this world seems cold. Stay young at heart. You are never, never, never old. I've been crying when I listen to this because even as you get older, you still stay young at heart. Mm-hmm. You still, as your body may age, but you still may stay young at heart. And then it says, hearts, that's the way of the world. Plant your flower and you grow a pearl. Mm-hmm. Child is born with a heart of gold. The way of the world makes the heart grow so cold. But you can rekindle your fire by making your thought process, as Martin Luther King said, excellence. Mm-hmm. And you pursue excellence, become a different person than who you are right now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. So do the inside work. That's all. Do the inside work. And I think the last thing that came to mind to me is when he said, listen, that's the way of the world. That's what I was telling him about my grandma. Listen, This is the way of the world. This is where the world is. So what you're going to do is you're going to show her how to deal with sorrowful days. Mm-hmm. We're going to show her how to deal with those sorrowful days. We're going to help her to understand that this trouble or whatever this feeling is, it doesn't last always. Mm-hmm. You know, that the future past will disappear. See, this is what he's saying. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with a world this is the world that you're in? Mm-hmm. The goal, insanity is when people will make people go insane, is that they cannot accept the world as it is. Right. And so they begin to create another world to live in that they feel safe in. So again, definitely the goal is to keep you to hesitate, to make you hesitate. Don't hesitate because the world thinks, oh, hesitate in doing what? Hesitate in showing love. Sometimes when you're going through it in a conversation where you don't necessarily agree, somebody starts hesitating to show love. But Felicia shared with us today about how after she acknowledged that she was the one that sent the bad energy into that particular moment, that she went and she had to press reset. Mm-hmm. Press reset. Well, guess what? Sometimes when it gets that way and your feelings get hurt, you don't want to press reset. Mm-hmm. You want to press reset, and then that thought comes and you hesitate. Mm-hmm. Why did you hesitate? Because the world seemed cold. Mm-hmm. But stay young at heart. Keep it pure as you can, as authentic as you can, and as connected to God as you can. And then you will see that you will plant that flower and you will grow a pearl. You will see that.
This was a little something in the spirit. I pray that you were blessed. I think we must close out ourselves up there.
It's okay. Yeah.
We're going to close out ourselves because I didn't get an outline in terms of what we should do. So I'm just going to say, hey, I love you and I beat you to it. Remember, soldiers, kids eat free.
Absolutely. That's what I want to make sure you said. Yeah.
Remember, soldiers, kids eat free. And I was told in ATL, they showed up and the parking lot was filled last week before they even got there.
Is that right?
And it was filled because we learned doing Kids Eat Free that we thought we were giving kids backpack lunches, and we had no idea that we couldn't diminish the food that we put in the bag because it was feeding the whole family for the weekend. And I had single mothers tell me, I'm so glad you all did this because I was out of money. I didn't have any money for the next 2 days or 3 days to be able to do that. And so we began to see that it was for the family. Now I'm learning and we're seeing that families are coming out in advance
especially now. Look.
Coming out, right? And so Devereaux, Zach has sent me stuff about it. Rivian, Devereaux, they've all sent me, Kirk, they've all sent me videos and what is happening. And one of the things Kirk said to me when he noticed, he said, there are a lot of people who at some point don't want to admit that they're in need. He said, but now he said, Pastor, I have seen that the temperature has changed. People are saying, yes, I need that. Yes. And, we went out and bought sardines and all these different things. And we bought them because they said, listen, this is a one-stop meal where I can get protein and do those different things. And they're not ashamed of it. They're not ashamed of asking. And I'm asking you to listen. Please support it. I'm being blown away. And I'm so glad that the soldiers, those who are sold out living to living, you all are doing the work. I'm glad that the men came out here in Maryland this past week and you all fed. Y'all don't know how that warmed my heart to see you all doing that, because as you come together and we get on this front line, we are changing lives from the inside out. And you must understand this. If you're a soldier and you are participating in Kids Eat Free, I just understood something I applied to myself, but I can apply it to the soldiers. They praise God because of me. You better understand, people praise God. You say that, soldiers say they praise God because of me. That is not taking.
Well, that's scripture. One of the leaders said,
he said they praise God. Paul, he said they praise God because of me. And you can say that because there's somebody, even while you're going through what you're going through, they praise God because of your obedience. And sometimes I'm comforted and I cry because I said, I'm not going to do it now, but I cry because when I heard that the parking lot was filled with different ethnic groups, and that it was not synonymous with just my community, but it was the entire community, the Vietnamese, the Asians, the Africans, white, you name it, Chinese, you name it. I'm saying, God, this is bigger than what I thought. And I'm just glad that we're in place and we're doing what we're doing.
These lights are really hot and I'm getting very, very hot. So
it's getting hot in here.
I'm getting way too hot. So I'm going to let him finish anything he has to say,
done.
And I'm walking away from the camera. God bless you all from Jill while you close out, because I'm hot.
All right, I'm done. I don't know what else. I'm done. Hey, I love you, and I beat you to it.